This is odd. We're broadcasting on a different channel. Usually this takes place on my main channel, but here... What is this place?
We're broadcasting on a different channel.
And we got feedback at your end. The old times of live streaming. So,
We're so professional.
I know. Hello, everyone. No, this is not Modeler's Corner. This is a completely new stream, which literally just came out of the bloom, really. Just thought of doing it there about 15 minutes ago. Called Casey and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" He said yes. And here we are. So this stream is basically a stream dedicated to miniature railway adventures. Plus, we're giving you guys some behind-the-scenes look at what's going to be happening for the series, and as well as this, what you're seeing here on the screen. This is going to be the setting of the set for a visual adaptation of the stories, which has been on the plate for about 13 years. And how long has the series been going on for?
13 years.
Yeah, pretty much 13 years. Yeah. So Miniature Railway Adventures has always been planned to be an animated series, but we never got around to do it. Mainly because, first of all, we didn't have the budget, nor did we have the skill. Well, one of us had the skill, but
yeah, that wasn't me.
Well, you did do a try at stop motion for a bit, didn't you?
Well,
yeah,
not very well, but there you go.
Yeah, but Miniature Railway Adventures was originally planned to be a 2D anime style animation, but somehow I think it was probably from, I don't know, my dad or something like that. Somebody said that they didn't think anime was probably the best way to go about this, so I had to adapt for a different style. And for a while, we just didn't really think as to what style it was going to be. And recently, I think this year, I thought, you know what, let's just try it with trains and just see how we go from there. Just try different things. So yeah, this is the route for the Miniature Railway. This is all based on the actual location where the stories take place. A friend of mine very generously made up a track plan, or what do you call it? It's a base mat or something rather, for Trains Simulator 19, and I basically just traced around that. So most of these here, some of these assets there, you might probably notice there are probably some ones from Soda Island 3D. These are all like ones that I could just get hold of at a random time, and just incorporate them into this here. But there are going to be some ones that I've actually asked some people to make for me, and they're currently in the process of getting those done. So just giving you guys just a wee visual look as to what way things are looking. If you want a better, there we go. If you want a more overhead map, that's pretty much it there. So that's the whole track plan of the miniature railway. It's still, again, like I said, it's still a work in progress here, but hopefully I'll have the whole area of the track line all set up here. So where we start off here, this is basically the this area here. Oop, come on, back here. No, not the flowers. See, this is what sometimes annoys me when I use Train Simulator, is that the cameras always yeet on you. Like you don't want them to. They don't want to go in the area where you want them to go to, and then somehow they just suddenly just spring into action very quickly. Anyway, this is the main station area where most of all the settings will all take place. These include maybe meetings with the dreaded Motor Car Society, or the MCS, as it's often nicknamed as. And trains go along here, which will hopefully be a loading ramp. There's meant to be a loading ramp here, but I haven't actually added that in yet, because I need to see about finding some assets for a loading ramp, I think. So maybe I'll try and see if there's maybe some scaffolding assets maybe on the folder maybe later on. And just try and hope I can control this properly. So come on, camera, behave. Here we go. Right, so we follow the line here through the woodland area, where this area here I was actually quite proud of here, because some of the ground textures not there worked so well, and I quite like that there. Then we reach an area called Bog Holt, which is mentioned quite a lot in the series, and for a while, I think the main reason why it's getting this name, in reality, there is an area called Bog Holt on the railway. This is mainly because it's close by to the WCs, i.e. the wall. But then there's also yeah, it's been pretty much just a bog. It's just a bog here, really. But in the series, really, this is basically this. I think there's basically like a bit of a small marshland somewhere around here, very close to an area which we'll show in a wee minute here. But also in the series, this is also where the railway traverses off, or not traverses off. Is that the best way to describe it? Branches off. Let's just put it that way.
Just
Yeah, branches off to this little sign here, which is where we go to the old mine display. Now, in this doesn't exist in real life, but we added this in because I think we just need an interesting area. Plus, it gives one of the characters to somewhere to go to and give them more work to do on the railway.
couldn't think whose that is, could you?
Oh, I don't know. Probably some Egypt with a battery-powered steam engine.
Mm.
I wonder who that person is. Anyway,
Yes, blue
yeah,
hair as well.
yeah. So this is the area where this character works, and we just created this little river here, which is also incorporating where the bog will be. The bog will probably be, I don't know, probably around here somewhere or around here. So this will give the area a bit of meaning.
Yeah, well, again, the river or the stream didn't actually exist, but we'll come back to that later.
Yeah, there was a bit of a behind the scenes in terms of how this stream came to be, which we'll talk about really well. Yeah. So in this blank area here, this is actually where the club room, or as we're now addressing it now in the series, the mess room of the railway is meant to be located, as well as the main workshops and the carriage sheds. And this is basically where all the engines all get repaired, and also where the crew of the engines all meet up and have their lunch and have meetings and so forth.
Get a
And
cup of tea of Jane.
yeah, this is basically where Jane Wilkinson, one of the characters in the series, works. And yeah, hopefully it'll be made up as well. And it's also where the steaming base for the racetrack, the 5-inch and the 3.5-inch gauge railways take place in. So hopefully that will be modeled in as well. I'm trying to find an asset, a track asset for that gauge, but as far as I know, the track that I'm using at the moment here, this is basically the Arsdale Military Railway track gauge that the German Soto very kindly sent me the files for, so I can use it for this this route. So I don't think there's actually a track gauge smaller than that though. But if anybody's willing to take the time to make one up for us, then that would be absolutely fantastic. We would love one just for getting these details in. But anyway, further on up the line here, we then approach the area which is Mercade Pass. Now this is where, in the story Casey and the Trader, this is basically where we have the introduction of the extension line, which will go along in a wee minute here. But years ago before that, this area here was the original return loop for the railway, and I think the reason why in reality, I think the reason why the extension line was incorporated in, was it because of the radius of this track was not that good?
No, it was just simply to give more track for passengers to enjoy.
Right. Okay. Well,
It wasn't anything to do with the radius, but in actual fact, in recent times, we've discovered that there's tree roots actually growing up under what is the old track, so
okay.
which makes it no longer suitable for passenger use, really. But it is used if the extension's out of use. So
yeah, I mean, I think the only time the extension line's been out of use then is when, like, I think maybe it was when we had heavy flooding or something or other, or
well, there was a time when we did a bit of civil engineering up there.
oh yeah, I think I remember that actually.
It was to adjust the gradients.
Yeah, and then there were times when several trees had fallen on the line as well that need to be cleared up. So anyway, we come along the extension line. Well, at least we're trying to go on. I think trying to go on the extension line if the camera behaves itself. And
Camera
yeah,
plays.
yeah. So this is the best I could do in terms of the retaining walls. Now, really, in reality, these walls are actually meant to be like a yellowish stone, but this is the best I could find in the folders in the train's download station. But it'll do for now. It'll do for now until another one can surface up somewhere. These trees out there are still going to be edited around. I'm still going to be working on them at some point, trying to get them looking better as well as the ground textures. But you know, it's just still in its early stages. Like then around here, there's going to be more forest over looking over there. Oop, if I just get the camera in the right position. So where this big hump here is, that's going to be more trees near here. So basically, the reason why that's there is just basically just to hide the edge of that set, really. And the line curves up around here, does this little S shape, this little squiggly line thing, which is based on how the track is in reality. And then it reaches the area where Stephen Mercade, the Mediterranean Adventures signalman's signal box is. At the moment, I don't know if there actually is a item in the downloads list for a ground signal box, but I'll see if I could find some. Have a look through the folder and see what there is. But yeah, the idea for the signal box for the series is it's just a little like ground signal box similar to what you'd see on a station platform or next to a level crossing. So it's basically like one of those, really. And then goes when it gets to this little crossing here, we have the engine sheds, which will be located where this track here is diverted off to here. Now, the engine sheds in the series is basically just the same as what we see in reality. It's the shed is basically
It's a shipping container.
Yeah, shipping container with a corrugated roof fitted on top, and it's just been like heavily insulated on the inside with I think it's spray foam or whatever it is that's on it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, which every now and again one of us maybe picks up there just to prove that it's not concrete, but it's actual foam. But actually, I think when I was young, I actually did thought that it was actually concrete there, but it was just it's just foam.
Yeah, there's at least one smiley face in there.
Hey,
There's at least one smiley face in there from someone doing that.
Oh yeah. Then maybe there's probably maybe like a bit of a graffiti saying, oh, I don't know, something naughty, which one of the Steam drivers maybe had put up just to be a bit naughty, or maybe it was young Matt. As you know, he does that sort of thing when he's not cutting up fire extinguishers to make into stoves, which is something I think we should probably maybe put into the series where if there's a fire or something there, we just say, "Where's the fire extinguisher?" Matt keeps cutting them up into stoves.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of these characters shortly and where they came from, possibly.
Yeah. So anyway, line then goes along this last stretch here, the home stretch. There'll be less trees around here. These trees here will be going very shortly here, which I'll be sorting out. And then we'll be back. We're back at the station. Now, further up here from the station, there's going to be some museum buildings here. I'm going to have a look through the folders again to see if there might be some nice suitable buildings that'll be suitable for the boating galleries here that take place right next to the railway. And then further up here, which again still hasn't been designed yet here, which will be the area where the dreaded Motorcar Society is located. Now, I'll mention them about later on here, but for the moment here, in terms of modeling the location, there actually is a nice building that I actually did find in the download station, which I have now got, which is perfect for the Motorcar Society, and it just fits the bill completely. So that's the route for the visual adaptation of Miniature Railway Adventures. Also, this area here, just in case anybody's wondering, it's just a bit of like a wee hillock. This is basically an area that does exist in the real life thing. I just think it just feels appropriate just to incorporate it in. Plus, it also gives us a chance to if I'm filming shots from this angle here, camera break, come on. Oh, just to show that there's something. Camera, will you please behave? How do people work with this? People who operate Train Simulator, how do you cope with this sort of stuff here? I literally do not know. I don't know how Carson or I don't know what you call them, other trains users not there. How do they cope with filming this sort of stuff? I say they just use other cameras and so forth. But anyway, that's better. That's the shot I'm looking for. So yeah, it's just so you can get a bit more better shot of the distance of that over there, which in reality is just a harbor or something, or the distant lands of wherever the railway is based at. So yeah, that's the route. Let us talk about some behind the scenes of the actual audiobook series and how it all came to be. So I know I talked about this before in a previous video back in 2018, talking about the history of the characters and so forth, but let's just remind you guys again. And I'll probably just throw up the Miniature Railway wiki page as well. By the way, yeah, there's actually a Miniature Railway Adventures fandom.com page that has been made, and maybe at the end of the stream, I'll put the link to it at the bottom. So if you guys want to learn more about the characters, which we'll probably be giving info about them later on in a wee second here, but also info about the stories, what stories are currently in the making, and what ones have been made into audiobooks. Also gives you details about, as well as the main characters. Also, it talks about the engines and even the locations for the stories and where they all take place in. So you'll be able to learn stuff about that there. Right. So enough of me chatting. Let's talk about the stories. Where do we begin?
At the beginning.
At the beginning. So, how did Miniature Railway Adventures come to be?
Well,
this is where I think this may involve Thomas in a way, because it did involve a Thomas video.
Yeah. Yeah, and in case people haven't realized, I've sort of I wouldn't say I've taken a hating to Thomas, but I'm just not.
It's not really that day. It's just that you've just sort of lost the passion for it now. I think it's just like
I've outgrown it.
Yeah, I mean that's perfectly fine. Like, I mean, there's times where you think, yeah, that's enough Thomas for me, and then let's move on with life.
Yeah, I mean, my view's a bit like Chris Eden Green, to be fair, that there is more to railways than Thomas, but I do keep him sort of back there somewhere, but
yeah,
but yeah.
But sometimes if you want to have a laugh or something like that, if there's something very funny that they did in the series, that you just think, oh, let's just have a bit of a funny laugh. I mean, do you remember when we did his drinking challenge?
Oh god, that!
I still have the recording of it somewhere, where Christine Green, when he was doing
the Train Now starring.
Yeah, the Train Now starring. I think him, Adam, and Sam thought about suggesting maybe doing Thomas the Magic Railroad as a drinking game, and we decided to take on that challenge. But instead of drinking alcohol, we drank Coca-Cola, because it was what we drank when we were kids, when we first saw it. So to make it more practical, and we only got as far as 5 minutes into watching the DVD when we literally just finished an entire 2-liter bottle. And my cousin, who was also with us at the time, because he saw it with me when I was a kid not there, he then says, "Thank God we didn't do the Boondock Saints drinking challenge." And I says, "Why? How bad's that there?" And he says, "Well, let's be honest, we would be completely wasted within the first second."
Yeah, and the other funny thing is that at some point we ran out of cola, and you ended up having to drink Diet Coke, and your cousin was like. And your cousin was like, "Oh, great, we get diabetes and you get chemical poisoning."
Something like that. I think, yeah, it's better. I think the line was better off dying with diabetes than alcohol poisoning. I think it was. I think it was the comment. I don't know. It was a while ago, but we did. But we did the chat. We did the challenge, and it's not that pleasant. we just barely survived it, and at the end of it, we just treated ourselves to watching Batman: Mask of the Phantasm because it was a good film. I got the DVD at the time, so
I think we've gotten a wee bit off track, but
yeah. Anyway.
But yes, I suppose the series started thanks to a little blue puff ball.
Yes, which, yeah, we did make a little model railway series on your channel actually, and this actually started my channel as well.
Yeah, because the funny thing is my channel actually existed first.
Yeah, because I wasn't really that ready to go into YouTube yet, but you went ahead and made your channel, and at one point you made you wrote this story, if I remember correctly, called Percy Gets Lost, and that's basically where we start off writing the or making the first Thomas video. Because I said to you on the school bus when you showed it to me, I said, I can make this into a film if you'd let me, because I'm into filming. I want to do some Thomas video stuff out there, and let's make a video.
Yeah, and I think if I remember rightly, we actually did come up with a few stories, but the reality is that we only made one full episode and part of an episode.
Yeah, we never. Yeah, it didn't really went as far as that there. I'll just model this over here because it's a blank canvas, and I like adding trees in. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, the part episode was called QE Who, if I remember correctly, and somehow I think this is probably where my enthusiasm for the story just got a wee bit off track. Really, no pun intended. But
I think one of the problems. Well, I was going to say I think one of the problems is we kept changing what was going to happen in it.
Yeah, because it was more or less like saying, oh, I want this to happen, or no, I think this is better, or stuff like that. There, where did those tree things go? I know I put the trees in somewhere here.
And I believe one of the biggest setbacks to it actually was that it would have involved at least one new layout and probably two. So,
Yeah, because at that time I'd done Farquhar Mark 1 or Farquhar Station at the time, and yeah, but I just just didn't have enough money at the time to make another one. Yeah, there's the trees I'm looking for. Right.
Yes,
so.
and this is when Miniature Railway Adventures started, because Michael had the bright idea of doing an audio series as a filler.
Yes, because QE got such a huge feedback. In fact, we didn't actually knew that QE was actually going to get such a feedback from viewers.
Yeah, in fact, part one was very popular.
Way popular than we expected it to be. So people that were then messaging us saying, well, mostly messaging you really, saying, when's part two coming? When's part two coming? And you had to try and explain to you, saying well, you have to understand that we don't have the money right now to make the part two. We're currently working on something right now, but then it's 2008. People, young viewers back then. I'm sure viewers right now who's watching the stream right now, you would know what we're talking about. People would say, "No, we want the video now. Give us what we want." And we're like, we can't.
YouTube was a very different thing back then, to be fair.
Yeah. So it then got to a stage where then I think we were on the school bus at one stage, and I just says, "How's the feedback for QU coming on?" You just said to me saying, "I don't know what to do. They just won't stop asking for the second part. We got to get the second part made." And I says, "Well, we can't because I haven't got anything done so far." But then that was when I discovered the Stoner Island audio adventures, and I think we listened to some of their works, mostly the Twin Engines audiobook that the old Bean did, and I
Yeah,
really
there we
like.
go. Thomas is in it again.
Yep, Thomas comes back again, but there was another one that
Get
they
rid
did.
of him, can we?
No, can't seem to get rid of him at all. But yeah, there was one audio thing I remember we saw, not that we heard, that we listened to. I listened to quite a lot there. That it was called Great Soda Island Forum's Summer Holiday, or a Great SAF Summer Holiday, and it was basically a story plot about how members of the forums were embarking in this weird story involving a funny seaside town called Beaching Town on Sea. A monster in the sea, the Power Rangers, a brainwashed Australian, as well as having the main villains being Australians as well, who want to turn the seaside town into a theme park place called Aussie World UK. And yeah, and so the guys were like saying the Sword Island Power Rangers were formed to stop them, and that's that's the plot. And most of it is just them literally like losing the plot some stage. Somehow it sort of ends in like they're trying to solve the issue using a game show type thing. Anyway, I listened to this and I thought I really like this idea. Why don't we do it for ourselves? But we use it as a way of explaining the reason why the second part of Huey Hue is delayed. There's something going on behind the scenes. So that's where Miniature Railway Adventures came to be. But it wasn't called Miniature Railway Adventures back then. It was just called The Search of the Lost Engine.
Yeah,
And
so
and it was just a random off story that I just came up with, literally off the top of my head. And I think when I got when I actually read to you the first bit of it there, I only got as far as one bit there where then I think if I remember correctly, this might get a wee bit embarrassing for you, mate. But when I was reading,
embarrassing me? Never.
oh, it gotta be, yeah. Actually, I think I got to the stage where I thought to myself, I don't know if I could include this or not there, but that was when I think you sort of just went like, I wanted it, and I wanted it, and I thought, okay, I'll
Yeah, it
see
was
what
a
I want
weird
then.
kid back then, to be fair.
Yeah. But yeah, there was one stage out there where I was reading your script, and then you just says, "Let's go and ask Dr. Robotnik," and I was like, "What?"
Wait, what?
Do you remember that? You asked me.
I don't even know where that came from, to be honest.
It was with the early YouTube poops out there where Dr. Robotnik and all used to be like the main theme out there, and there was the snooping as usual I see meme came about. Do you remember that? So anyway, yeah, so there was that there. So you wanted Dr. Robotnik in it there. I thought, right, okay, let's just try and work him in, I suppose.
And I suppose that's where, and I suppose the plot went downhill ever since.
Yeah, so then I thought to myself, right, because I wanted it for your. It was originally made for your channel in some ways, but then it got uploaded onto my channel for some reason. I can't remember why. So yeah, so that's where
Because reasons.
yeah, because
Reasons.
reasons. I think I probably wanted more. I wanted more content, and just didn't have enough. Really.
Probably something like that.
Yeah. And so that's where Miniature Railway Adventure started off. And it was only after we started Search the Lost Engine, you then approached me and says, "Look, I've got some ideas for extra stories because I like because you said that you really like the idea of the having the characters and that there, and so that was when we decided to continue the plot, and that was where On the Railways came to be, and
Yeah, and this is another point that it's probably one of the few series that is made for YouTube anyway that doesn't actually focus on the engines as such.
yeah, because like. One thing that people have to get in their heads like is that Miniature Railway Adventures, even though it's called Miniature Railway Adventures, has nothing to do with the trains. The trains don't talk in this series, though. Sometimes
God, really?
Yeah, because God, you remember this? There's sometimes just saying that now just reminds me of some of the early stories that we came up with, and some of the ones that you came up with where you wanted the engines to talk, where in fact your character could communicate with the
Well,
engines.
well, we'll come back to that later, sure.
Yeah, it's a bit of
Yeah.
a weird story plot though. But anyway, um, so there's that, and then but it was also like paying tribute to the people who gave the inspiration to the series. Because I mean, when I went to see the actual Model Engineer Society that the railway is based off there, I was surprised at like how friendly everybody is and how great a company the guys around here is. So I actually wanted to cherish that a bit more and have more of the human involvement in the stories. So that's why I thought, yeah, we need to focus more on the people in this and try and get as much involvement with them as possible. So the trains are pretty much the secondary characters in the whole thing, again, even though they don't speak. And shall we talk about them? Might as well, really.
Well, I suppose what we should just say before we do this is that um, it was sort of after we started doing the series that the interest for doing Thomas videos, certainly for
Yeah,
me, disappeared.
yeah, and for a while as well, for me as well. Apart from doing like model railways on like doing modeling Thomas Net there on my channel, I just sort of didn't feel any interest to do any videoing of Thomas videos for a while. But
I suppose one of the problems is so many people were doing it.
yeah, and they possibly were doing a better job than us, really. So I just thought, let's just let them do it.
Oh, but
Yeah,
yeah, shall we talk about characters now?
yeah. So let's talk about the first two characters that feature in Miniature Railroad Adventures. If only they were here now to talk to us about them.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's. Why don't you guys listen to us? Explain
We're
to
the
them.
next best thing.
Yeah, we're the next best thing to these two characters. So, so Casey and Whitehouse.
Hmm.
Right, they're pretty much based off us, really.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah, pretty much.
In
So,
case you're no, just in case you're wondering about the names, I think Michael's name is self-explanatory. Because he's
yeah,
Michael White. Um,
yeah,
my
but
name, my name has a slightly more complex history because it's nothing to do with the train out of Dumbo. It's to do with um, the American engineer Casey Jones.
yeah, because
And when I tried to, yeah, and when I tried to use that name, it was already taken apparently.
yeah.
So,
So Casey
so
Jr. was
I'm
the
his
next name.
offspring. I'm his offspring.
Well, if you want to put it like that, I suppose.
Well, yeah.
Um, then yeah, so we're trying to explain. Yeah, it's all explained on the online fandom page as well. Again, which will be added in the description later on after this stream is done. But yeah, so these two characters, they're basically just like a set of just normal train drivers, really. Well, one of in the early series, Casey is the one who's the main train driver, whereas Whitehouse at the time is just a spare. He was playing guard at the time, I think, because that's also playing truthful to my role on the railway, because I was also a guard during the early stages of Miniature Railway Adventures as well. And I can actually remember, like, sometimes there were times I didn't actually quite enjoy being a guard because I got bored. You get very bored very easily being stuck in a brake van at the back of a train in the cold weather, especially in the winter seasons, where
Yes.
you're where
Especially when our guard fans are completely open.
yeah, and you're in a nice warm cab as well, which
Well, say what
is
you
very
want. It's not
jealous.
as warm as you think.
Well, it's still you're close to a fire anyway, so that's it's saying something. So, but anyway, so yeah, later on in the series, the characters have some more different roles out there. So Casey later becomes the main passenger driver on the miniature railway, and Whitehouse gets upgraded to a shunter and spare driver on the railway, which will be covered in a future story, which again, I might explain later on in a second, in a wee while, about the stories and their uploading stages. So the next character is Corpse. Now, I have to again remind people his nickname, the character's nickname, has nothing to do with dead bodies. This was yeah, because in the early stages, people
I suppose that's one of the most asked questions, is it?
yeah, because his name is spelled differently. Because I think corpses and dead bodies is spelled Corpse. I think that's how it's spelled. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, or answers on a postcard if that's still eligible. um, but yeah, his nickname came from a brand of toy soldiers that my cousin actually used to collect called Corpse, and I think they're still made today. I really do not know if people who collects toy soldiers, if you had these brand of toys, you'll know what I'm referring to, eh? But yeah, he had these toy soldiers, and he was a big fan, and he had a big collection. So I thought, yeah, well, let's just call him. For early stages, he was called Corpse Fan, and oh, thank you, Dan. That's how you spell it. So yeah, he was for a while he was called Corpse Fan, and then it was just simply Corpse afterwards. And but his real name, I think it was only until 2014 that, or was it 2015? Yeah, 2015 that the character actually had a proper name, which was Rory Clements.
Yeah, I think that's another thing we should point out, that in the early years, only Jane had a real name.
Yeah, Jane Wilkinson was the only character in the series to have an actual name given
Everyone
to.
else has a nickname,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
at least the main characters.
yeah. The main character, the early the four early main characters, yeah, they had nicknames, but yeah, Jane was the only one at the time to have a full name.
So,
Then Cars, he
oh,
was.
before we go on to Cars, should you explain who Corpse is based on?
Oh yeah, Corpse is basically, yeah. I think I said earlier on, he's based off my cousin who I actually saw him not that long ago. Actually, I think it was last week I saw him, and yeah, he's in good form, and he's always enthusiastic to help out with doing all different types of media stuff and out there. And um, I think his the reason why I got him and I based the character off him was because I think it's just his energy for coming up with random ideas of story plots and that there. And even in the early voice cast audios, that is like the actual corpse who plays him.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that in the early years, Corpse as a character was how could you
Nutcase.
yeah, a nutcase.
Yeah, he was basically the Doc Brown out of the team. Really, he would he was originally meant to have like all these weird inventions that he was experimenting and he was basically like a Dr. Frankenstein type character who try and make all these weird inventions that there. Some of it was actually to help the railway, which some of it sometimes didn't always go according to plan, but then sometimes they do. Who knows? And
Um,
one of the early running items that in the early stories, like again, this is actually not on YouTube or anything. This is actually all like in written down in notes out there. He was actually meant to have this special watch that had all the info that he can get hold of. This was like before like smartwatches not there. In fact, yeah, we actually created smartwatches or so back then, which we actually based that idea off Penny Gadget having a watch with everything built into it there, which pretty much started that off. But anyway, I could boost time machine. Well, he did invent something called a time toilet in the early days. Which is something he based off the I think it was the Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson live show Bottom, where they actually made a time toilet called the Turdis. Ha ha ha. Um, but yeah, he basically he just randomly just suggested that idea to me, and I thought, right, let's just roll with it, and that's how it came to be. And Yeah, so,
But
so this watch that he had there, I think it was called the Watch This, which stood for Watch in Time Contraption Holding Dimensions in Space. Oh no, so watch continue is it holding dimensions in space. So I think that's what it was. And it was basically like an item that would help solve all of our issues. So it would hack into this, it would have these features where it'll hack into the security cameras around the railway to find out who did this and so forth. But I think at the time I just thought like it's a bit too futuristic, I think, for the series, and he wouldn't really have that much skill in order to do that sort of things, but he will later on. So I think probably maybe afterwards it was it was probably dropped from the series as just an unused item.
and
But
as a character, he got developed into this more normal person. If you like.
he's more or less he's more or less now based off like inspired by Critter Davenport from the Dukes of Hazzard TV series. That
Except not quite as crazy.
no, not quite as crazy as Critter is in the series, or in the god awful 2005 adaptation.
But we'll not go there because you'll be on a rant. Let's just
Yeah,
get away.
yeah. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, in Corpse in the series, he's more or less now the main workshop attendant. He has a whole degree in mechanics and engineering. So if there's any problems that the engines have, he knows exactly what the problem is, and he's basically like I say, he's a mixture between Kurt Davenport and Ted Glenn. He will fix anything anybody needs to mend.
So
Yeah.
that's Corpse.
That's Corpse. Then we go on to the next character, which is Cars, or as he's now called in the series, Mark Carson. He's based off an old friend of mine who originally Cars was actually going to have he was originally going to have a name called Mark Sterling. No, not Mark Sterling. Ross Sterling. That's what it was. Ross Sterling, which was meant to be a base. Yeah, I think you don't know where that idea comes from.
Yeah, we're not telling you. You can work it out yourself.
Yeah. Answers on a postcard, please. I'm probably going to keep repeating that during the stream, but anyway.
So Corpse is the mechanical Jedi. Law.
Yeah. Maybe he is, for all we know. But Cars is, in the early stories, Cars was basically the early protagonist, or was it not protagonist?
Antagonist.
Antagonist, yes, sorry. So he was originally going to be like the big villain of the railway, and he would try and cause all havoc for all of us here and make our lives a bit of a misery. And he was based he was based off an old school friend of mine who absolutely loved like hot rods and American style bangers and so forth. So I asked him if would he be interested if I did a character based off him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, definitely." So he was originally planned to record lines for this for the original Social Lost Engine audiobook, but unfortunately, getting available time for him to come over to record it there was just not happening. So I did the most cheapest thing I possibly could, and I just did his voice. I just imitated him. So what you hear in the final thing is basically me imitating him as badly as I possibly could. So yeah, it's a very, very bad impersonation of him. So he's pretty now forgotten now that there's a character based off him, and
Quite probable.
yeah. But anyway, in the series, Cars actually was the first ever character to have a backstory, which apparently I just thought like, yeah, this is kind of like a nice thing to work on, like, give characters some bio here and there. And I thought, well, what's the best selling point for a character? I'll give him a tragic backstory. So I thought, right, okay, let's see. He was made redundant from a bit of work that he used to work of, and he used to work for the the Motor Car Society, and I just found that there. That might be good for something. Just see how big that is actually. That jetty. Oh. Might be useful for something here. I'll make a note of that later on. Anyway, so yeah, in the rewritten version of Search the Lost Engine, I think that's where we probably give Cars his proper background development as to why he was back then. And after that, he became a temporary station master for the military railway because there was no work going around. So he decided to work for us for a bit. We decided to do a bit of a on the buses take where he would be in the line of playing the Inspector Blake, or Blakey as he's known in the series, and me and Casey would play jokes on him. But
What?
then,
Go on.
oh, I was just gonna say then after at the end of that story, like we actually give him a better outcome at the end where we realize he's going through a bit of a hard time, and we'll just be nice to him and give him a better ending story, I suppose. Anyway,
Yeah,
you carry on.
I mean, I suppose what I would say is that when you redevelop the character with the more developed backstory, I suppose it made the character more sympathetic.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not always where you actually just feel like you get so into your characters, like because I mean, it's the same with me. Every time I'm writing a story, I actually get so involved with just getting more background to the characters and that so forth. This has nothing to do with, by the way, if anybody asks, do I do this with the Thomas story? Thomas series, I don't. It's already done for me, so I don't have to do it myself. So, but yeah, with Miniature Railway Adventures, I like to give the characters their own backstories and just give them more development, really. And Cars was one of those characters who I actually thought, yeah, this is actually quite good fun to
Yeah, I mean
do.
because I suppose in how he originally was, he seemed a bit heartless. But I think
Yeah,
then I think when you rewrote Search of the Lost Engine, you could be more sympathetic with the character. You realized he wasn't doing these things because he was evil, but because
he was good. Yeah, he was
he
going
was
for
steered that way.
yeah, he was steered that way by his work back then, his current manager, and so after that, then Cars then now plays the role as the second in command of the railway and chief foreman of the railway. So he's more or less like second in command to the boss of the railway because of his good good leadership and understanding of how to manage staff and so forth. Though there are times where he would be put in his place every now and again if some people don't like how things are going, which often relies on being spoken out or spoken to him by the next character who I'll be talking about is Jane Wilkinson, my favorite character in the series, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
Also, the first female character to appear.
yeah, the first female character to be introduced into Miniature Railway Adventures because she came about in the early days of planning the series because I was writing the story Pirates of the Railway, which is going to be like our take on the story Pirate from Tugs, but with a slightly different twist maybe here and there. But Jane was written as a secondary character for that story, and she was going to appear every now and again in future stories afterwards. But that was originally meant to be her introduction to the series. But I think it was only after that then I wanted to give her more character and a more bigger role, and that was where we made her like the fifth main character of the team. And now and again, like she's still currently being developed in terms of character backgrounds and so forth. But for the sake of the series, she was brought in because her grandfather was chief caterer for the railway, and Jane wanted to work in the catering industry, and some places couldn't take her on. So she heard that the Model Engineer Society were looking for somebody to help them, and so she came on board with that. Plus, it was also following her grandfather's footsteps by working in the same area that he worked in, and that's where Jane came in. But she's a very good character. I like her because she's the kind of person who actually she cares more for the characters than the characters do for themselves. Uh, she knows exactly what to do in a situation, and tries to solve it as best she can. She does make mistakes, as everybody does, but she learns from them as time goes on, and she's not afraid to speak her mind when things don't go the way she expected them to be, or when things go awry, if there's an argument or anything, particularly when it comes to cars and members of the team. And we also try and incorporate as well in the series as well, which is again is going to be a bit of a spoiler, but Cars actually has a bit of a love interest with Jane. The moment he first saw her on the railway, he instantly fell in love with her. He just liked her personality, or I don't know, just probably something about her that he liked, but yeah, he just instantly fell in love with her. So, but Jane, for a while, like in the series, she doesn't actually have an interest in cars. She didn't like them that much. Yeah, so for a while, I think in the times of the series, she was sometimes joke around saying like okay, I'll go out with you if you help me with this in my work or so forth, and he would instantly do it. But then I think later on she'll get caught out and say, "No, you need to do your work as you're told." And she's like, "Okay, no worries." But that doesn't stop her from having a bit, just mucking about and just having fun really with the lads. But anyway, so yeah, Jane is pretty much like part of the team out there, though she does sometimes feel left out on some occasions. Which in one story she does help out greatly. Not going to reveal which story that is, but she does help out a great deal with Railway or with the team altogether. So that's basically the main railway team. So the Motor Car Society. Let's go from there. Now, I think these are the characters that we seem to have more fun with in terms of dialogue, and I think mostly with grinding gears. But let's talk about the main boss of them, Mr. Bernard Martin Williams, or sometimes very rarely nicknamed Mr. BMW to the members of his team. Which is really that's basically how his name came to be. Really, I just made an anagram of BMW and just created that name. But
yeah, I think we did have a different name for him, but you came up with that name instead. But I couldn't remember.
I can't remember what it was. It's that long ago. But yeah, Bernard Martin Williams stuck with me for so long, and I thought, yeah, that's his name. And he started off in life as a way of trying to make money as cheap as he possibly could. His family worked for a small petrol station somewhere in the outskirts of town, and he would charge people twice as amount of money for a gallon of petrol, but he would only put in half of the amount that they had asked for, and he would never tell them that he'd done this. And so that's how he started off with his early days of being a dodgy dealer. And he also joined gangs trying to find ways of smuggling illegal oil. Or there was also, I think also there was a time there was some scandal years ago where I think it was red diesel or something was being used for transportation. I do remember there was times where police would often pull cars over for using illegal diesel powered cars. Uh, I don't know. There was some form of diesel oil that was used in cars that was illegal at the time, and the police were pulling over people for running their cars on this stuff. So Burnett would have been involved in that sort of would have been used for that sort of thing. Yeah. He was a bit of a Dell. He was the Dell boy for then, but more of an evil sort of a way. And
I'll be back in a wee second and just.
yeah. You go ahead and do what you need to do. So
I'll be right
yeah, no worries. So yeah, like anyway, he would use his gang to try and sell off all this diesel and so forth, and if they ever got caught, he would pull the blame on them, and they would, they would end up in prison, and he would get away scot free. And as far as I know, some of those colleagues are still in prison to this day, still awaiting their sentences or their trials. But Bernard still carries on the way he is, and once he made his fortune, he decided to set up a dealership called the Motor Car Society, and he thought the best way to hide that it's a black market dealership was to make it similar to like a club society of some form. And he made his base within this area at the bottom of a transport museum because he thought it'd be the best place to do business. And he built this. He found this old factory that used to be there before the museum was developed, and originally they were going to demolish this building, but Bernard says no, I can use this for my business, so forth. He bought the rights to it, or bought the deeds to it, and made it his own ground. And there he takes old scrap vehicles, and he would do them up as best he can. Put like sawdust in the engines out there so that they would run quietly and smoother in it there. Um, glue like the car mirrors and so forth with super glue. It's basically like Mr. Wormwood from Roald Dahl's Matilda. That's basically where I got that inspiration from. And he made quite a big fortune out there. So he wanted to expand his business in 1970. But he saw he saw an area of land in the museum grounds that he thought it was the perfect site to make a factory to make these vehicles, but he couldn't meet the cost. They wanted a very certain amount of money, so he was held back a couple of months for that there. But by the time he finally got the income to do this, a railway society or model engineer society bought the ground, and they built the little miniature railway. Burnett was not pleased about this, that this land he had his eyes on to make his factory was now gone. And since then, up to this day, he has been trying to close this railway down and claim back the land. And this is the main plot point for Miniature Railway Adventures. And so the Model Engineer Society has to do what they can to prevent this from happening. And hence why we have five teenagers trying to save this railway from being closed down. So that's basically it. In appearance wise, I'd say if you want to visualize what Bernard looks like, he looks like he looks like a slightly larger, taller version of Danny DeVito, slightly more obese, less hair on top, a bit of tuffy gray hair on the above the ears in a sort of friar tuck type fashion. Has a very bad comb over of whatever top hair he has left, and he has a very geezer, not geezer. What's the word they called it back then? Spiv, I think is probably the best way you call it. Like a Joe Walker. If you remember Joe Walker from the TV comedy Dad's Army, he has one of his mustaches. He has one of those. He has a dark brown pinstriped suit of the 1940s, or so it's going to be he has a pinstripe suit out there from the 1940s, fedora style hat, and he always is seen smoking a cigar which sets out plumes of dark green smoke. And it's explained in the series that these cigars are his own design, his own brand, which it's not actually known exactly what they're made, what the tobacco is in them, but it's written or described saying that the smell of them is actually so powerful that it actually makes marijuana seem like an air freshener to anybody. So I don't know what it does. I don't think it makes you stoned or high or whatever marijuana does. I don't even know what it does, but yeah, it does something to you. I think it makes your lungs more powerful, more legible to sustain poisoning than normal alcohol or so forth. Not alcohol, tobacco and nicotine and so forth. Uh, Sorry if I'm drawing on here. It's it's nearly midnight, and so I'm a wee bit tired. Anyway, that's Bernard. Then he has his lackeys, his bumbling sidekicks that does most of all his work, and these characters I actually think were like before they came about around before Bernard was created, and that is Grinder and Gears. Um, Grinder and Gears, Grinder and Gears were just a bunch of nitwits, really. They're basically the opposite of Casey and Whitehouse, really. That's basically what I described them as in the early days. They were basically the opposite in terms of like they have the similar appearances to them, but different clothing, different hairstyles, just like the opposite, like the negative side to them. That's basically who they were. And they were based off numerous psychics of villains in the past, but the most mentioned villains are that they're based off is Jasper and Horace from Disney's 101 Dalmatians, and Sly and Gobbo, the goblins from Noddy's Toyland Adventures. Um, no, they weren't based off Bebop and Rocksteady. I didn't really watch. I didn't really watch that much Ninja Turtles when I was a kid, so yeah, I didn't think they were based off them that much. How they got there isn't actually document in the early stages about how they came to have their names, but in the later stage of actually developing, in the later stage of developing the characters out there, I decided to give them a background as to why they have these names, and it turns out Ground and Gears that's actually their real names in the series, which they actually admit that they absolutely hate the names, they absolutely despise them, and they hate their parents because of it. In fact, their parents are very rarely mentioned in the series. Come to think of it, only Jane. I think the only character out of the entire series to have any relatives mentioned is Jane, because she has a. It's mentioned that she has a grandfather and grandmother and an aunt who she's never met before. So anyway, but
I'm
yeah,
back.
oh, welcome back. I'm just talking about Grand and Gears now.
Yes, them devils.
We devils. I say, we devils. Anyway, um, so yeah, they would do these guys. They would do all the bidding that Bernard wants them to do to try and come up with ways of closing the railway down. They do what they think the best they can, but it's not the best ways in terms of schemes. But sometimes their plans go according to plan, but maybe not. However, it's out of the two of them, Gears is the only one to actually have more intelligence than Grinder does. Because reason why is, again, this is all to do with their names. Grinder, first of all, Grinder gets his name because of his voice. In the early days of the series, I gave Grinder this gravelly Mark Hamill Joker voice. So, in order to do that, you have to actually develop a growl in the back of your throat. I can't do it right now, but I'll give you a rough impression, really. So he would sort of talk a bit like this. Oh, there you go. That's the voice. That's the voice that I was talking about. So he would talk a bit like this every now and again, and he would actually have the sound of. He would actually have the sound of an actual angle grinder, um, which again in his history I wrote down developing his voice. And that he actually, in fact, Grinder actually used to have a normal talking voice, but when he was a toddler, when his parents were who also is mentioned as well, they actually worked for Bernard. When they brought their kids into work. Well, they couldn't afford babysitters back then, so bring them to work, I suppose. And his mother was busy doing some angle grinding with a bit of metal, and part of the strapling from the metal had got into Grinder's throat and permanently changed his vocal cords to have that sort of a grinding voice. So that's how he got that. Whereas Gears, he actually got his name because he is more intelligent. He actually spent most of his childhood studying, doing the best he can to try and make his parents proud, whereas they were more interested in trying to get Bernard's business up and going again. But in early days, early drafts of the series, he would be the one who devises the schemes and plot them all out. But Grinder would probably take the credit for all these schemes, saying that it was all his idea, and because of that, he'd be the first one that Bernard goes for if they fail. But in terms of voice, Gears actually, I can't remember what voice he was originally going to have. I think originally he was going to have a very deep voice, or maybe a similar voice to Grinder, really. But then I thought, well, maybe he actually has a Yorkshire accent, I suppose, because I think some of his early days he probably must have studied somewhere up north, I suppose. So he would sort of have a slight bit of a Yorkshire accent or a Lancaster type voice. So that's the sort of voice Gears would normally have. And yeah, but Grinding Gears, I think later on in the series, as the series developed, they too also have a bit more of a chemistry in terms of how they interact with characters and so forth. And they start, even as well, whilst working for Bernard, they too start to think, is this really what we want to do in our lives? There should be more to this. But it hasn't actually come to writing just yet. But
And I think the other interesting thing is that despite being the villains of the series, they actually do have moments where they actually get on with the MES.
yeah, because sometimes there actually is a story saga that's in building. It's in development right now, where the both societies have to join forces to settle an even greater enemy than the Motocross Society, which is really saying something.
Yeah,
but
but even at Christmas, the two
yeah,
clubs went on to get together and things like that.
yeah, only until Boxing Day, because
Yeah.
but yeah, Yorkshire, the most evil of all accents.
Ooh.
Oh, I don't think so. I think I chose the Yorkshire accent because I actually love the accent. I just love that style of voice. Really, I think it's perfect. Plus, I think also as well, it should be mentioned as well that why I chose the Yorkshire accent. I think that because there's a character in the original Magic Roundabout film, Dougal and the Blue Cat, where the main villain was actually from Yorkshire. So I thought, why not give him a Yorkshire accent? I suppose, but this is not making fun of the Yorkshire people from Yorkshire. I love Yorkshire. It's probably my favorite places to go to, really. So I love it. I actually love it bits, really. So so yeah, that's the main characters of the series. Now let's talk about the engines, because that's basically what this. You can't have a railway without engines. Yeah.
Well, you could, but it wouldn't be as interesting.
No. So let's talk about the main engine in this series, and that is, of course,
The Flying Scotsman.
seriously. Seriously, you're going to that? Okay, yeah, the Flying Scotsman.
Royal
Yes.
Scots.
Well, yeah, Flying Scotsman, Royal Scot. Lady Grange. That's your pride, your character's pride and joy, so to speak.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, so Lady Grange was brought into the series on the railways because even though we had Betty, the society's main engine, I thought the best way. So, I thought it'd be the best way that we actually have more engines taking place, and just to give a bit of a different chemistry really for the character. So having your character own an engine, I thought was probably the best way to go about it. Plus, it also gives your character something to fuss over as well.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I think
I think the most important thing to point out is that I actually did own her at the time. So
you still do own her.
yeah, well, this is true, very much true. Although she is in a million bits at the moment. But
Yeah. Right now, the real Lady Grange locomotive is currently undergoing some serious overhaul issue maintenance and a repaint as well.
yes,
Because some young train spotters who visit the railway mistaken her for Thomas the Tank Engine, which I think back then, I think in the early days of the series, you weren't too pleased that your engine was mistaken for Thomas.
oh well. What gauge is the MRS?
MRS. I don't know.
What the hell is the MRS?
I don't know. I think it means the Miniature Railway series.
Um,
Miniature Railway Adventures.
orange gauge.
Yeah, the trains are all 7 1/4 age gauge, and
Which is small.
it is small. It's small, but very powerful at
Yeah,
times.
yeah. I mean, you think about it, it's third size for narrow gauge, so.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, yeah, Lady Grange.
She gets involved in she's mentioned quite a lot in the stories.
She's
So
not.
much
I
so much
think
in fact
she
that
was.
so much in
Oh,
fact that so much in fact that she actually is now part of the series logo now.
yeah. I think that's a fair point. I think she is mentioned more than any other engine.
Yeah.
Even the fact that she's mentioned more than Puffer surprises me.
Yeah, again, like I think back in the early days, I actually really wanted to give my character more screen time, but then I thought, no, it's just basically self promoting, really. So I just thought, let's just put my character somewhere in the background, perhaps, of some stories, and only be used for certain things. But anyway, um, yeah, Lady Grange would be mostly the center of attention when it comes to being the main loco of any story, and even I'm actually starting to find Lady Grace to be like my favorite engine in the series, and that's something from somebody who actually wants to insert his own engine into the stories as well. Yeah, that engine being Puffer.
I mean, you think about all the adventures that this engine gets up to, like the fact that she discovers the old mine and
Saves everybody from a astronomical exploding jewel or something like that there. But also, she sometimes could also she would also fall victim to certain events as well, which will happen in later stories. But
will not spoil anything for you.
yeah, well, I will give this one little teaser, and that is something on Godfrey. Don't think that's a real word though, but something unmentionable happens to Lady Grange that sets your character in a bit of a state of depression for a bit, which we'll leave it there for now. But she is a very strong asset to the railway and helps out in out of many situations that the railway has, and I think because of that, that's why she's in the series. She's now part of the club's new logo. Just to say thanks for all the help she's given us. So,
Thanks, Brum.
So that engine that discovers things is also part of the car. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That makes me feel old.
So the next engine in the local fleet is Puffer, who is a very small battery powered tank engine, which my character owns, and also is based off a real engine that I own as well, which fits the same description. In fact, Puffer was actually created before I actually purchased the engine, because
Is that well? Actually, I think one thing I will point out is that all of the engines are actually based on real engines.
yeah, in fact, yeah, because everything on Miniature Railway Adventures, down to the actual railway, the people, and the engines, they're all based on actual counterparts of people and engines that either have existed or still operate to this day.
But you were saying about Puffer.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I brought him into Miniature Railway Adventures first before I bought the engine, because at the time I was looking for an engine to run on the Miniature Railway in reality, and I came across the website Compass House Models, and I saw this tank engine, and I thought, this is the one I want. Nothing because it looks like it looks like a standard like little tank engine out there, but it's just because I just thought it's perfect. It's just the perfect size. Now, unlike all the other engines on in Miniature Adventures, Puffer is very different, mostly because of his size and his mode of power, that being battery powered. And it's often in the series. It's mentioned a few times. It's mentioned quite a few times by, like, sometimes his batteries would run out, or maybe even uh not even powerful enough to take on a train, which is also like play on to some little jokes you often pull at me as well, if I remember, Chris.
Yeah.
About
I mean, to be fair, in the series, my character's a bit of a prick towards you about Puffer.
he is, in a way. So, but my character just ignores him, just carries on with life. He's got an engine. He's happy. Enough said. But
Bit like
but
my character, I don't care what people think about Lady Grange.
no. So yeah, it was just, you have an engine, just be happy with life. I'd just be happy even you've got an engine altogether, really.
Having said that, it wouldn't matter if we scrapped Puffer, would it?
Oh, really? After all those years I saved of my money, I had to save up to make him, to buy him. Anyway, so yeah, Puffer was introduced to the series in On the Railways at the very end. Talk about shoehorning in something, but
Yeah, we're getting as bad as Hit Entertainment, so we are.
I don't think they're around anymore. They're gone now.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you mean now. But anyway, let's just not go into that there. But anyway, yeah, so Papa was shoehorned at the end of On the Railways, and he was mentioned a few times after that there. But yeah, it's basically he's just basically like a background engine that just appears as the main shunter of the railway, and I think that's basically fine, because I just wanted to give the character of White House just to have a different role, and I thought if he has his own engine, then that way he has more stuff to do. So have him being promoted as the station shunter to to arrange everybody's trains just seems to be the best way to go about, really. And that's how that happened. So yeah, Puffer sometimes like Relay Grange has his moments here and there, but times it's just a background character, really. Anyway, next engine is Betty. Betty,
Faithful old Betty.
faithful old Betty, the first engine to be introduced to Miniature Railway Adventures, which is the basis for the Search of the Lost Engine, or the Stolen Engine, really. So yeah, Betty is based off a real engine, a Bagnall-based engine, and in the series, I actually said that Betty is maroon when clearly she's actually crimson. Is that right?
No, I think she is maroon in real life.
All right, I actually thought I always thought she was crimson.
But it's funny because Although she is now red, she was originally green.
Yeah, I think that's probably maybe put in at one point there.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever mentioned in the stories, but she was green at one point.
Yeah. Does Betty have a hot pot? She does. She does sometimes. I think she may often encounter hot boxes, so that could be a nod to that, I suppose. Betty's hot box. Nice little note to Coronation Street.
No,
No. Then
I'm not a
again,
soap opera person.
well, then again, like I mean, would you like to have an episode where a goods train crashes off the viaduct next to a pub, or have a big tram crash? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, Betty is actually for the first while she was actually like the main engine for the railway. But then when Lady Grange came in, she was then relegated to secondary work or spare engine, but she still operated quite a lot really in the stories, mostly driven by various members of staff of the railway who isn't really there are more people working on the miniature railway than the five characters. It's just that I think maybe for the safety of the people who actually do operate the railway, we decided not to give them their actual names and just say that there are other members of staff, but just extras, I suppose. Anyway, but most in the series, Betty's mostly operated by a young youth called Matt, who is a very lazy youth, really, based off any typical late 2000 teenager who just is always lazy, wants to spend more time in bed, listen to rock music or go to rock concerts or so forth.
Well, to be fair, when he is at the club, he does do a good job.
Oh yeah, when he does arrive at the club.
Yeah, yeah, he does come down, but yeah, he was a character that I just came up with out of the blue.
Yeah, and I think it also should be worth mentioning as well. Matt is actually based off an actual friend of ours at the railway, who I think more or less roughly shares the same name as him. But
Yeah.
we don't go into those details. We don't mention it to him.
Yeah, but um, yes, back to Betty.
Yeah,
Yes, so Matt normally drives her, but before that, my character used to drive her, and then another character who we've yet to mention now drives her, but we'll talk about
yeah,
him shortly.
yeah. So then that's Betty. Next engine on the line is Sir Giles.
Oh God!
Boy, do our characters hate this engine so much. So Giles is a diesel engine on miniature adventures, based off a diesel
Enough
hydraulic.
said.
Yeah, enough said. But it was actually one of the first diesel engines I think to be brought to the miniature railway, and it it was all in its early days. I'd say that it probably operated fine or so forth, but later years it just had a bit of a issue of producing clouds of black smoke now and again, made loads of noise, and just was just a nuisance really. But it's this engine in particular is mostly driven by a member of staff again who's basically based off a real life person who used to do this years ago, doesn't do it anymore now after a
Partly because the engine's not there now.
the real engine's not there anymore, which we'll acknowledge later on in Miniature Adventures series. But the character who drives him drives this engine is called Fast Eddie or Eddie Fastolf, and he is a good character in his way, but his continuous trait is basically driving the miniature railway engines at full throttle and is just a bit of a hazard really on the railway. So yeah, so that's Sir Giles. But every time when the edge is brought out, we always make sure that Casey is the first person to know that this is this is happening, and he would be the first person to voice his opinions.
My character absolutely hates Sir Giles.
So much, so much.
Sure, my character just hates diesels in general, but
Yeah,
Giles even more so.
yeah. So next engine in the list. This engine hasn't really got its actual episode debut yet, but somehow randomly this engine appears in an episode in the first series, Miniature Adventures.
Yeah, but this is a bit. Yeah, this is a bit odd. She officially hasn't appeared yet, but she was in an episode.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the engine. It's the engine Gene Anderson, who is a Kerr Stuart Wren type engine, and again, this is actually an engine based off one that you own. Which
Yes, I've got too many.
yeah, you definitely have a quite a collection of some of the quarter gauge engines, I must admit.
I need more though.
But as I keep telling you, mate, where are you going to store them? The engine sheds are full enough as it is.
I'll find room. Don't worry.
Well, on your head be it. As
Well,
usual.
the other option is to sell something and buy something else, but we'll just see.
We'll just see. So, I'll just save this route here in case this crashes on me, which I hope it doesn't.
Rip map.
Okay, right, there we go. So let's see now.
No, I'm not donating one to you. I want money.
Anyway, so yeah, Gene Anderson, she just appears in the episode Road versus Rail, which was I think it was originally meant to be for series 2 or series 3. I can't remember which one it was though, but she just randomly appears in the episode and enough said really.
She randomly appears and then as quickly as she appeared, she disappears.
Yeah, but she will have an official Miniature Railway Adventures episode of her introduction. But for now, just pretend that she's just an engine on loan. In fact, I think that's probably where we should have actually mentioned it in the episode. Gene Anderson was actually an engine on loan that you were trying out, and then later on you bought her. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, then the next engine is another secondary engine who isn't really used that much at times in the series, but again, this is an engine that hasn't actually had its official introduction yet, mainly because of some behind the scenes info about this here, and that's the engine called Dylan. And I'd say this is a sister engine of Lady Grange because it's a similar design to her, but not really in terms of ways.
Yeah, I mean, of all the engines that we have listed, this is the only one to have never appeared in the series so far.
Yeah, but we haven't actually. I think the problem is that right now, in terms of what we have in the story wise, we actually haven't really thought of when's the best time to bring Dylan into the series, and when will it be the best time for it there. But as far as it also is noted that in the Miniature Railway Adventures, Dylan appears very mysteriously. Nobody actually knows when or how Casey gets hold of Dylan, buys it, and there's also a rumor as well that though it's not actually made official yet, that Dylan is actually Casey's favorite engine, even though that Lady Grange is actually used quite a lot on the railway. So there'll have to be some explanation for that, but who knows? We'll probably think of something. If you guys would like to have a story idea, feel free to come up with various ideas, and we'll see which one will be the best one.
And we'll reject them all.
well, we'll see. Anyway, that's pretty much it mostly. Oh yeah, there's also guest engines as well. There's a guest engine that features in the stories called Finn McCool, and this engine in particular, this engine had to appear in Miniature Railway Adventures because in the early days of the stories, I think you Chris, would not shut up about this engine whilst we were traveling on the school bus. You constantly mentioned this engine so many times, saying that you one day you would like to own the engine or dream of driving it or something or something or other. But I think it was at one stage where I just said, like, look, I have to see this engine for myself to believe it's true. That this is probably one of the best engines in the world. And then you showed me a photograph of it on the Beers Height Light Railway, and I thought, yeah, it's actually quite a nice looking engine. So Fimical actually did originally run on the Model Engineer Society's tracks, as we mentioned in the stories. But it was then sold to another owner, who now is a steam engine driver on the Beers Height Light Railway in Picorama.
Yeah, so
But-
Finn McCool goes there every summer.
Every summer, yeah. So if you're at the Beers Height Light Railway and you see Finn McCool, that's an engine from Miniature Railway Adventures. But in the wintertime, Finn McCool comes over to Ireland, to Northern Ireland, to do the winter trains at a place called Drummoyne Junction, who is mentioned in the series as a fellow railway club that the Model Engineer Societies help out every now and again.
Yeah. And
But,
then, of course, in the stories, it is explained that Finn McCool is the name of an Irish giant. So
Yeah, to which part that my character says, let's hope there isn't an engine called Belladonna, otherwise Finn will be up for competition.
yeah, and Finn McCool also is the only locomotive to have Gaelic style nameplates.
Yeah, whereas normal. I don't know what the font is used for normal steam engines. That there's probably I don't know. I forgot what you call it. What's that common font used? I don't know. It's probably maybe Helvetica or
I think there's a few different fonts actually.
yeah. But anyway,
Finn McCool uses Irish Gaelic letters.
yeah, just to give more of a meaning behind the name, really, I suppose. So yeah, that's basically the engine characters really in the series, and
Yeah. So shall we talk about secondary characters?
if people want to hear them, so let's talk. Let's talk.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see. I mean, how long have we been chatting for now? I think we'll stop around about 1:45. How's that?
Oh, hang on.
Oh, hang on. Story idea. Story idea for Dylan. A young member explores an old hidden and derelict shed that's crumbling and finds Dylan. Another staff member tells the members and member takes it. Well, I suppose that's sounds that could be a bit of a backstory to maybe how Casey gets it, but like we might explain that story through flashbacks, I suppose, or some form or other.
I think one of the funny things is that it was sort of written that even Casey didn't know where Dylan came from.
Yeah. He doesn't know where Dylan comes from. Somehow he seems to just suddenly be the owner of this engine.
Yeah.
I mean, one night I saw this engine. Said its name was Dylan. I was drunk. And
I was going to say the character was probably drunk at the time.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nod to the Top Mat's monologues, which is an essay of
which is strange considering my character doesn't drink.
No,
or not very often.
Yeah, but
although he could have had one night where he got a bit carried away and
got a bit carried away with the fizzy pop and engine money bye. So, but yeah, that's Dylan there. But anyway, secondary characters for Miniature Railway Adventures. I think the first one to be introduced was Charlie McGuire.
I thought it was Stephen.
No, Stephen actually came secondary because it was like during in the early days of development. I think it was Charlie first because Stephen didn't arrive until 2015. Or was it 2015? Yeah, 2015 was when Stephen was created. But Charlie was created in 2011 when I was writing another military railway story. But yeah, in series wise, Stephen is the one who is introduced first. He was brought up. He was brought up in a family whose business was mostly to do with thieves and other thieving out there. So they would have to try and find ways of making money, or they would go around stealing things from the public and out there. Stephen didn't really enjoy that quite a lot, really, and
He was like the black sheep of the family.
yeah, he was the black sheep of the family, and didn't really want to do much about it though. But then his family then persuaded him to get a job, so he ended up finding work at the Motor Car Society. And when he found out there was a miniature railway club next door, he briefly mentions that he has an interest for railways. To which point he was immediately fired on the spot, like on his first minute of work. He was instantly fired because he likes steam engines, or he likes railways. And after that, he thought, well, might as well see if the railway society has places going, and that's how he ended up working for them. But Steam came at a very convenient time for the railway, because they were busy undergoing the construction of the extension line. And when Casey found out that Stephen was a past member of the Motorcar Society, again for a very short period of time, he instantly took a massive dislike for him and never trusted him at all, because Motorcar Society members can be very dodgy. You don't know who they are, who ex people for the society are. They could be spies, so forth. So he had this massive grudge against Stephen for the whole course of the stories. But then it turns out that Stephen actually had a slight mission to go on as well, because when the track bed for the railway was being the extension line was being excavated, the team discovered this old hidden jewel, which actually was left there many years ago by one of Stephen's ancestors from the 1940s during a robbery. And upon seeing that jewel, Stephen was instantly hooked on knowing more about its power, about its value and its power. And you will have to listen to the audiobook to find out what it is, what happens. That audiobook, by the way, is Casey and the Trader. Definitely worth listening to that there if you want to find out what happens afterwards. But but after all the events there, Stephen was then taken on board with the railway to be its signalman. And what happens in Casey the Trader results in him gaining the railway's trust, and he has this area here, Mercury Pass, named after him. And this is where he has his little signal box, which I'll have to try and source out in this folder here. Just change the height of that tree, I think. Yeah, probably just make it a wee shot there. Yeah. So yeah, that's Stephen. Then Charlie Maguire, he came on as he was actually originally meant to replace my character, because I think in the early stages I got a bit fed up with my character, because I didn't think there was anything he can do that I thought would be best for the series. So I thought, right, I think I'll just write him out of the series entirely, and bring in this new character who will probably have more potential, and that's where Charlie came in. And his story was more or less just like a bit of a newcomer to the railway. He actually arrived without any knowledge at all as to how to operate a railway, which made things quite difficult for the team, because they needed Charlie's services very greatly. But only find out that he has no experience whatsoever is just a bit of an embarrassment, really. Anyway, in the series, Charlie tries his best to be try to make a good impression, but things just don't go according to plan, and it just goes a wee bit downhill for him. But he was able to make good impressions later on, and he became a worthy asset to the team. But then I think some stage during the course of the series, I thought, well, it was when when I brought in Puffer and so forth, and wanted to give the character White House to be a shunter in the series, I thought, well, yeah, this probably might be a good time to bring this character back, but keep Charlie in as a secondary character, as a spare driver and so forth. So yeah, that's where I decided just to keep Charlie on board with the series altogether. So the stump's a bit too big, so let's just change that. But he still has a lot to learn as young Charlie, and he has. There are times where he does help out the railway greatly, but in the course of his introduction, that's most notably where he shines the most. Yeah.
And then there is actually one more secondary character who will be introduced at some point.
Yes. Is this the character you created?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is another female character. Just a bit of a spoiler here, but she's briefly mentioned or just briefly hinted in the last audiobook, and we will be introducing her later on in the series. But for right now, it's we're going to keep her name quiet. We're going to keep her identity quiet, but she's going to be a new vital asset to the railway, to the railway club. But we'll just keep it all quiet there. Now, in terms of the history, in terms of how things of the series is going right now, people would just be wondering, like, what are we doing with the series now? Because and why this route is being made. The reason why is that I think I mentioned maybe at the start of the stream, is that we really wanted to have Miniature Railway Adventures to be brought to life visually, and by that was that doing audiobooks is fine, but I don't know. I think these last 13 years, I just thought maybe it's best that we give Miniature Railway Adventures a new stage of life and try and see whether this might help let it gain an audience at some stage. Because these last 13 years, only a small fraction of people know of its existence. And when I say to them, I say, like, oh, I've done this other series called Miniature Railway Adventures. Have you heard of it? And they're like, oh no, we've never heard of it. And I'm like, but it's been around for 13 years. How can you not notice it's here? But I digress. But yeah. So this is why we're doing. We're going to be tackling this visually. We're going to do this as a visual adaptation. So I'm making this trains route of the actual railway, filling in all the assets as to what takes place on the railway, and help people visualize what's going on in the story plot, rather than us constantly describing to you, which can be a bit annoying at times, but there you go. But anyway, so how it's going to look here is that all the trains and scenery, as you'll see, is going to be represented using Train Simulator here, but the characters are going to be imposed using sort of like a 2D style animation in some ways. So they're going to have a sort of Ivor the Engine style of animation and appearance. And a friend of mine has agreed to make up the models of the engines using reference photographs that I'll send links to them for. And I've also asked a fellow Thomas fan, to see whether they'd be interested in designing the characters for the series, to which they have said yes, they would. And I'm really pleased to see, or pleased to know what, and see what they come up with here, really, altogether. I hadn't heard of Miniature Railway Adventures until you post on Twitter and the link to it here. Well, that's usually how these things come awry, but there you go. But yeah, Dan, if you want to see Miniature Railway or listen to Miniature Railway Adventures, listen to all the audiobooks on the channel here. These all date back to 2013. No, not 2013, 2008. Some story plots change here and there, but what can you do? We're still developing the series. But yeah.
So
hopefully at the end of the year, hopefully this is what our aim is to actually have a teaser trailer for this new series of miniature railway adventures, just to give you a preview as to what we will be adapting at some stage, as well as new stories that we plan to adapt. Sorry, what were we saying, Chris?
Oh no, I was just doesn't matter.
That's okay.
Just waffling.
Yeah. So, right, I think we'll probably just wrap it up here for now. But before we go, there's a wee bit of an announcement, really. I want to make an announcement here. Now, this is a wee bit of sad news, but not really, permanent sad news in a way, because it's been mentioned a few times, I think, on social media, but just to make it official here on the Miniature Railway Adventures YouTube channel. So, after 13 years helping out develop the series and writing some of the stories, some of its most popular stories, I think, in my opinion, my good friend Chris, otherwise known as Casey Jr., is retiring from Miniature Railway Adventures altogether, which I have to admit, it's going to be difficult carrying on with the series without him, but just want to say officially, thank you so much, mate, for all your help with this series. I don't know how we could have managed these last 13 years without your advice, enthusiasm, and even your stories as well. So, thank you.
Yeah, it was good crack. It's just
Yeah.
I
You
just felt it's time to move on.
Yeah, but we still keep in contact out there, and sometimes I will probably ask you for some what's the word, consulting advices for technical terms and so forth for a story plotting out there. But
be fair, you do that all the time anyway.
yeah, that's true. That's true. But Chris has written a great handful of miniature railway adventure stories, which I will adapt. And the recent story on the channel is one of his own, as well as the story "The Green Knight." That's also one of his works as well that I had good fun adapting. So, yeah, you've heard it here now, folks. This is Casey Jr.'s retirement of writing for Miniature Railway Adventures altogether, and I now have to take the reins now from now on and try and do what best I can with this series.
But you can't. But I can. That's the thing.
Yeah, he has the choice, isn't that there? So, but yeah, it'll be hard. It'll be difficult to work the series without him. But like I said, we move on, and some things has to be. It has to be as to be.
As I say, it was good fun. It's just that I felt that I've had my time, and
yeah,
it's just time to do my own things.
Yeah,
whatever those may be.
And the other announcement here for Miniature Adventures is the name of the next audiobook, which is currently in the writing stages right now and will be adapted hopefully later this year. And that is this is a story from the early days of when we were writing the stories, and it's going to be called Rivals. And this is going to be a bit more of a history, a history with grinding gears. That's going to be their proper main debut to the series in general. And it's also the one story where both you and I actually had a lot of issues of trying to come up with a name with for the title. Because I mean, I can't remember what the original title was, but Rivals was the working title for a while. Because you wanted to have something different, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just I think of all the stories, it's the one that the title really stymied us.
Yeah, but I think Rivals just seemed to be a bit more of a fitting title, to be honest, considering it's two rivals competing against each other, really. And yeah, Dan, if you're more than welcome to help out with Miniature Railway Adventures if you want, because I can't do this on my
there's
own.
a slot open now.
Yeah, there's a slot open like there. So yeah, there's going to be some more stories coming out. There's a feature-length novel which is halfway through writing stages. It's currently at the moment it's on my DeviantArt page, but I'm going to take it down for the moment here because there's some items in there which I need to look over again, and I've actually asked somebody to come on board with me to have a look at it, to bring it up to date a bit more and to make it a bit more interesting for readers and so forth. But it does have it. I have asked a professional audiobook narrator to narrate it. This time it's not me, but it's a fellow called Mr. David Gurney, fellow SAF member. But he also he actually briefly appeared on Modeler's Corner, I think, because he was watching the stream and we invited him to come on board. So yeah, he's volunteered to help narrate the story, and hopefully someday when the book is finished or whatever, we can hear its full version. But what I will have to say first of all is that with the feature length novel, you're going to be seeing the characters in a different view or a different light. They're going to be acting very differently to how it's that you hear them in the audiobook series. But yeah. Also, this is finally just one last thing I just want to ask here to all the viewers at home here. Would you like for this visual adaptation of Miniature Railway Adventures? Would you like the characters to be separately voiced, or would you like to have just a single narrator doing the whole story plot, like it was with the audiobooks? If you want the full cast version, then we'll probably have to hold auditions to play the characters. I'm going to be if it's got full cast, I'm going to step down playing my character because I can't play I can't play two roles in one series, only if I need to. But I can do the narration for the stories out there. But for playing the character of Whitehouse, I'll have to let that role go to somebody else. So if anybody wants,
that'll feel odd.
Sorry.
I'm sure that'll feel odd having someone else voice you.
Yeah, it will feel odd indeed. So yeah, if you guys want a full cast version, feel free to leave your comments in the comment box below, and yeah, we'll see how we go from there. Or if you want a standard narration audiobook style setup, then again, make it known in the comment box below, and we'll see what we go from there. Right, guys.
I must say you've gotten on with this modeling quite well.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't actually used trains that much in the past like that. So when I showed this to some people on a Discord server I was part of, they were like, "Wow, this actually looks very professional." And I said, "Yeah, this is only me like starting back into trains after a while." So yeah, I'm actually really pleased at how well this actually turned out. So yeah, I think maybe next I might do another stream maybe someday later on where I'll do more coverage of this map and so forth. But we'll see how it goes. Also, if any trains users who are watching the stream right now, this route won't be available for public use out there. This is actually a private use. This is only for Miniature Adventures only. But maybe when we get around to if we ever think about maybe ending the series, then I will probably maybe release it as a public route for anybody to use. So we'll see how we go from there. Right, guys, we'll have to sign out now for tonight. Thank you whoever's tuned in, all two of you. One of you is probably you, Chris. And the other one is
quite possible.
Yeah, and the other one is yourself, Dan. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll keep you updated on Twitter as well as this channel, this secondary channel, Mini Railway Adventure. Keep you all up to date with it there. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and goodbye, I suppose.
Bye.
Bye.